This was tough because there are so many that I like. It was hard to get to 5. So we'll see if they stay the same once we get to the weekend. But here's where I'm starting. Here's one I love. And I was happy we got the hook on this one. I love Chicago plus 3.5 against Detroit. So I get to fade Jared Goff in these conditions. I've seen this man play in Chicago. What play in
The Lions
Chicago?
stuff.
The Lions stuff? So I get to fade the Lions stuff. I get to fade Jared Goff in the wind and the cold, and I've seen him quiver in that. Oh, man, and the Bears are playing better. They're coming off the bye. Like, there was one Sunday night game when he was still with the Rams. Like, he was visibly shaking. Like, he was so scared. I don't know if it was more weather or more Bears defense that night in Khalil Mack, but, yeah, domination. Give me the Bears plus the hook. Come on, plus 3.5. I love that one. So that's my first one. Another one I like, I'll take the point with Cincinnati. Cincinnati's going to win. They're a home underdog to the Indianapolis Colts. Like, I respect everything that Steichen's doing, and they're finding ways to win games. And, they have the easiest schedule ever created by man. But I'll take Browning. I'll say this can carry over for another week. I'm fine with that. +1, he'll find ways to get it to Chase and get it to Higgins, who he did not get involved too much the other night. So like that, big debate on the Eagles. What we saw on Sunday, is that closer to reality, or is that just the worst spot ever with all the defensive snaps and the tough schedule that they've played? Since we're getting the hook, I will take Philly plus 3.5 at Dallas. I lean more that was just a horrendous spot against San Francisco. And San Francisco was my favorite NFL play of the week. And that did not surprise me what occurred. But the Eagles are gonna bounce back. Don't know if they win, but they're gonna be in that ball game. Give me Philly plus 3.5. Jordan Love is really a touchdown favorite on the road already. Like, we've gone that far. We went from he ain't the guy. Oh, it's great to see the Packers struggle. They're not going to get life isn't that easy for Jordan Love. You see why they didn't want to give him that contract. To now, oh my God, he's elite. Like, I'm hearing people suggest that he might be top 5, top 10 right now. I'm like, okay, we're going a little bit too far. Give me Tommy DeVito plus 6.5 at home in one of 2 Monday night games. And the last one, probably the least confidence of this group of 5, but I think they're going to win the game. It's just tough to go against Mahomes off a bye, but I'm going to do it here. Super Contest put this line at 1.5, so I'm going to take Buffalo plus 1.5 against Kansas City. So Chicago, Cincinnati, Philly, New York Giants, and Buffalo. And I'm now realizing I just said 5 underdogs. Lovely.
I'm going to start with tonight. The Steelers rank near the bottom of the NFL in points per game. It's pretty ugly, but the Patriots are just much worse. I just can't back them in any way. And I'm going to give the edge to Mike Tomlin and the Steelers defense. So Steelers -6. The Texans stuff, yeah, there's no way I'm betting on the Jets. I like the Texans. We get -3.5, right? Is that, yeah, that's
Sure
what we got
do.
in the contest.
Yes.
So yeah, Texans, CJ Stroud is having a season. I know there's a long list, but also if there is weather, I don't think any running backs for the Texans are on the injury list. The Jets have scored 4 offensive touchdowns in the last 88 drives. So they're going to have to rely on their defense. And against this gunslinging Texans team, I think it's going to be a problem. Got to mix in a dog for the people. Rams +7 at the Ravens. All right, that was corny, I have to admit.
No,
I
I
think
like
this is
it.
an interesting situation for the Ravens. They had a bye last week. But you look at the numbers for Harbaugh coming off a bye, 9-7 ATS. That doesn't really help me make a decision here. The Rams have been sneaky good. Now, I get the Ravens are trying to get the number 1 seed in the AFC, and they do have a chance now because the Chiefs lost last week. But I really think the Rams and Matthew Stafford are playing well. They can get Kyron Williams going. I think they can cover this big number. So Rams +7. Niners -10.5. I mean, does anyone really want to play San Francisco right now? I don't think they do. I know this is a big number, But listen, the Niners beat the Seahawks by 18 points on Thanksgiving. That wasn't that long ago. So I think the 10.5 will be just fine. And then finally, Joe, going against you on this one, Chiefs minus 1.5. I just think at home, they don't normally lose 2 games in a row. I think this is a good spot for the Chiefs to bounce back, even if Patrick Mahomes has a banged up pec.
All right. My picks. We'll start with the Buccaneers +1 divisional game. 2 non-standout offenses. Anything can happen. Having that point's going to help me. Also mentioned this on Let's Be Sharper. I do think that the Buccaneers can disguise the pre-snap looks to where they will execute something differently. Atlanta will not be prepared for that. And also the Falcons are still capable of duds, right? Like, do you trust the Falcons offense to keep up if the Buccaneers are scoring a bunch of points? No, not at all. Browns -3, bad weather game in Cleveland. That should have some kind of a nickname here. I'm sure Aaron will come up with something great, and then we'll share it. It is going to be about who can run the football most efficiently. Since week 4, Browns rank 14th in rushing success rate. The Jaguars are 28th. Number 3, Bengals +1. Hate succumbing to recency bias when a backup quarterback is playing well, but YOLO. Jake Browning, the quick game, that will keep them up. And I do think they can lull everyone else to sleep in terms of Browning getting to cost a couple of deep balls. And I think they'll do well there. Then Texans, I think we're in agreement here. Texans -3.5. Tank Dell news, may have had a slight impact as far as the spread goes. Other injuries certainly have as well. But I still think that CJ Stroud can do just fine in this spot here. They rank 30th in the NFL. The Jets do in defending the intermediate part of the field. So this big bad Jets defense, this might be just a bad matchup for them. I think CJ Stroud can capitalize. And then finally, the 49ers -10.5. San Fran is elite passing out of condensed formations. They did it a lot in the last meeting against the Seahawks, and they will do it again. So 49ers, Texans, Bengals, Browns, and Bucks. That is my list.
I would love this if this happened tonight, and maybe this is where the Bucks maybe roll over a little bit. If the first quarter goes the same way and it's 38-24 Pacers like it was back in early October, like I wonder if that's where like the Bucks, it's kind of like, all right, like they're not going to give up, but like maybe you don't get that counter punch as much. At least that's my hope. Look, Giannis scored 54 in that game last time. You can have a better game than that.
And you know why?
Yeah,
because of the front court.
No
because they're soft
They
inside.
got no one to match
and
up.
he's going to do that again tonight. It doesn't mean Milwaukee's going to win, but I mean that was my first look for this game. It's like Giannis props. I know 33.5 is a really high number. I still think he's going over that number. I was considering rebounds, but it just might be him scoring all day.
The reliability aspect is where I would agree with you. And Paul, I want to push back on one thing that you said about Pacers' outlook going forward. I think Indiana is this year's Sacramento Kings. Out of nowhere, offense is phenomenal, defense big question mark, running it up and down the floor. I think the Pacers are this year's Kings. And what that tells me is, okay, yes, they're going to perhaps be a little bit more motivated for a game like this. Fine. But I also think that they're in the Eastern Conference and they probably are better equipped to make a deeper run than, say, Sacramento did a season ago. But you look at the offensive numbers for the Pacers. I mean, they're ridiculous. The Ringer pointed out that Indiana is generating 9.22 more points per 100 possessions than the current league average. That is the second highest gap in nearly 25 years. And that's kind of what the Kings did last year, right? Like, it was all these phenomenal offensive efficiency metrics basically pointing to this being a really, really tough out in the playoffs. Just the question is, what was the matchup? And unfortunately for them, they got perhaps the worst possible matchup they could have, at least when it came to round one. I don't see Milwaukee slowing that down. The transition game for the Pacers is phenomenal. Third in the NBA in effective field goal rate at 64% in transition. How does Milwaukee slow that down when we already have a lot of questions about the defense? So definitely going over makes a good bit of sense to me. But at the same time, can Milwaukee keep up if they're just constantly feeding to Giannis down low? I almost feel like at some point they do need to have effective three-point shooting to stay in a game like this. So ultimately, I think I'm going to take the points.